So I'm going to go ahead and start this recording and we'll get started. I do want to just let you know, originally we had set this up as meetings, and so I apologize for the confusion on the links. I had to switch from a meeting to a webinar, and then some of the links got confusing. So anyway, I'm glad that everybody is joining us today. And to let you know, we will be recording these sessions. We will turn off the recording at the very end in case people have questions that they would like to ask, and that won't be recorded. But we do have, just with the overwhelming response, we felt like this would be the best option. I see that chat is disabled when it's a webinar, but you can use the Q&A on that if you would like. And we also have a discussion board via Jamboard, and I'm going to go ahead and put that link again in the chat, and I'll put it out. I'll put it in just in case we get others joining a little later. But I do want to, and I will make sure that I put everybody's name into the actual sheet, because it sounds like some of you can open it but can't access using the sticky note. The sticky note is when you get into the Jamboard and you see the icons on the far left, it's the fourth one down that looks just like a little sticky note with writing. When you click on that, if you've never used Jamboard, it will come up. You can pick a sticky note color and you can put your comment or question. And I have a few pages for today's session, and if need be, I'll add more. And so we'll just go ahead and go with that. Because of so many people being on this session and being registered, it just seemed like the best option. And so we may not get to all the questions today, but I promise you that Christine will look at those and she will be able to come back and answer any questions that you have. So everybody, welcome to session 1 of the Primary Behavior Community of Practice. Christine Manning, I went ahead and included her biography and picture in the email that was sent out with the link for this session. And so just to save some time on that. So I will be adding everybody in, so you will have edit access in just 1 second. As soon as Christine gets started, I will do that. And so you have that access. As far as questions go, if you don't use the Jamboard and you have something before that, please write them down. Grab a piece of paper, write your questions down or your comments, and then either add them in that Q&A or wait and put them on the Jamboard. We will be offering certificates of attendance. We will not be offering straight PTSB credit because there's not enough hours to allow for that. And so, but if you attend, we will be sending you a certificate of attendance, and then you can collect all of your hours to equal your half credit. And especially if you're doing primary and secondary sessions, there should be enough hours for you to actually get a half credit. Again, if you attend all of those. And then if you are attending in a group today, I know some of you sent me emails. I will need a sign-in sheet after each session with that person's first name, last name, email, and then that way we can make sure we get those certificates out to each individual person. But if you'll wait and send me those at the end of the session so that I know that those people actually attended, that would be great. And then you'll be receiving your certificate of attendance from Jennifer Duncan, our administrative assistant. Okay, well, I do not want to take up any more time. Christine Manning, we have contracted with her as a state agency, and she has already been doing fabulous work across the state. She presented our last year's WAVE conference and our new teacher boot camp, and she will be doing so again this coming WAVE conference and boot camp. If you haven't saved your dates for those, the new teacher boot camp will be July 29th and 30th. And then the WAVE conference will be July 31st through August 2nd. So make sure you save the date on your calendar. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Christine Manning. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad that you're here. I know it's after school, and I know that you guys are probably exhausted and want to go home, and who knows what your weather's like there. I know here it's really windy. I'm going to go ahead and get started quickly. We have a lot to get through because I frankly couldn't decide what to take out. And so This week, this session and the session on Thursday are both going to be classroom management strategies to improve overall student behavior. They're not the same session. There are different, there's different information in Thursdays. So like Deana said, if you guys want to sign up for the Thursday session as well, you'll be getting different information each week between primary and secondary. So not only, it's not necessarily inappropriate for primary grades. So today we're going to learn the science of classroom management strategies with strong evidence to support positive student behaviors. We're going to understand how to improve the learning environment to decrease problem behaviors. And we're going to learn how to successfully implement a simple group contingency. And I wonder if I can move this somewhere. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Deana is going to share her screen again, and we're going to do a poll here. So there you can see who is joining us today, just so I know who we're talking to. Helps me be more relevant for you. We have some general education teachers, wonderful. Special ed teachers, paraprofessionals. Some administrators, welcome everyone. Great, it looks like we've got a lot of people here that are all school personnel, it looks like, no parents yet. Wonderful, thank you. Looks like we have about 48 special ed teachers, 19 general ed teachers, about 10 para educators, and I know you guys probably aren't getting paid for this time, so thank you for being here. 12 administrators or directors and 38 other. So thank you for joining us today.
I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And for some reason, it pulled up our second poll, which is Thursday's poll. So I apologize for that. I don't know what happened. But anyway, if you answered that second question for primary, when you're a primary teacher, hopefully you just answered secondary, because that will give us the same results.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Deana.
Did it show you the results?
It did. I just closed it out, but we
Perfect.
went over them. Yep, thank you. Okay, so if you are new staff, I hope that you'll find a lot of things in here to help your practice and help you become a better teacher. If you're returning staff, I don't care if you've been a teacher for 10 years or 30 years, I hope, and I can almost promise that you'll learn something new today that you can implement to improve your overall teaching. So I really tried to work the full spectrum of beginner and very advanced content. So please don't let anything I say make you turn your computer off. Please stay, because I promise you'll learn simple things that you can implement that make a huge difference in your classroom. So like I mentioned earlier, we're going to cover the same topic, but different content on Thursdays. Everything we talk about is going to be best practice. It's all research-based. It all has a lot of evidence to support efficacy. It's also trauma-informed, restorative practices, best practices for all students. And then the first 3 weeks, we're going to give a lot of content. And then the last 2 weeks, we're going to apply the content that we've learned into case studies. And those will be separate for primary versus secondary, just because we will have teachers that only attend one or the other. And so it will only be tied to content that you've received in the session that you're signed up for. So I'm going to go through some of this a little quickly so that we can get to all of it. I couldn't decide, and Deana and I spent some time on the phone trying to decide what to take out, and it's hard to take out anything because it's all so valuable. So some slides I'll go through rather quickly, and others I will park on for a little bit and we'll talk about that. Also, like Deana said, if you have questions, hold on to them, put them on the Jamboard or write them down. I will stay afterward when we stop the recording and answer questions if it's a broad question that would apply to whoever stays on, not specific to a particular student. So learning objective 1, we're going to learn the science of classroom management strategies that have strong evidence to support positive student behavior. So it's important that we follow the science. And sometimes I feel like when we're educators, I guess from my own experience, when I taught elementary school, I wanted everything to be cute. And I wasn't necessarily too concerned if it was research-based to be effective. I just wanted cute stuff. And I think sometimes we get farther and farther away from the science, and there is very specific science to help us to be better classroom teachers and have better classroom management. So the U.S. Department of Education, IES, or Institute of Education Sciences, What Works Clearinghouse, has a ton of resources on there. I do share my sources at the end of the slides. I know these slides will come to you after the session today, and you'll have access to all of this that you can do your own research and see what's applicable to you. So on that website, there are 5 strategies to prevent behavior in the classroom. So 1 is identify the specifics of the problem behavior and the conditions that prompt and reinforce it. We're going to talk about that in weeks 3 and 4. 2, modify the classroom learning environment to decrease problem behavior. We're going to talk about that today. 3, teach and reinforce new skills to increase appropriate behavior and preserve a positive class environment. 4, draw on relationships with professional colleagues and students' families for continued guidance and support. And 5, assess whether school-wide behavior problems warrant adopting school-wide strategies or programs, and if so, implement ones shown to reduce negative and foster positive interactions. So when the What Works Clearinghouse has these different evidence-based practices, they give a rating if it's strong, moderate, or somewhat effective. And the ones that we're going to talk about are the ones that have the strongest evidence. So we're going to talk about modifying the classroom learning environment to decrease problem behavior. Research shows teachers who proactively decrease problem behaviors implement classroom management approaches that A, establish an orderly and positive classroom environment by teaching and reinforcing rules and routines. We're going to talk about that. B, reinforce the appropriate behavior of individuals and groups of students. We're going to talk about that. C, practice instructional principles that incorporate presentation of new materials with, oh my goodness, I can't read my slide. That's pretty bad. Let me see if I can move this. With modeling and practice, and we're going to talk about that one. D, offer a variety of activities and materials at a pace and level of difficulty appropriate to the range of student abilities in the class. We're not going to talk about that this week, but in the secondary session, I think this week, maybe next week, we do talk about this. And then E, encourage collaborative peer support, peer tutoring as an instructional strategy. So we talked about the science. Now we're going to look at how we understand improving our learning environment to decrease problem behaviors. So don't hang up right now. Don't jump off, because you may have classroom rules and routines, and I'm sure that you all do, but do we have them according to the science? So this says, establish an orderly and positive classroom environment by teaching and reinforcing rules and routines. This is a direct quote from the What Works Clearinghouse website. It says, revisit, repractice, and reinforce. And I'm going to teach you how to do that for them today. So you might be saying, I already have classroom rules. I don't need this. And like I said at the beginning, I almost promise that you'll come away with at least a few things that you can change to enhance your practice as a teacher and give you better classroom management strategies. I do have checklists. This is a little snip of one. It's not the full checklist, but I will be sending out teacher checklists where you can look at what the criteria are for best practices for having rules in your classroom. And if you rate yourself in the needs improvement, getting there, meaning you have some, but you have some work to do, or proficient, you're good to go. So it'll be a self-assessment. I really would like you guys to use it, and I'd really love your feedback. So that will be something that you'll be given through email after the session. And I'd love to hear what you guys think of those checklists. You'll be getting 2, and we can talk about that next week. So rules and routines, best practice. Expectations and rules should be concrete. They should be positively stated. They should be conveyed daily, sometimes many, many times per day. It seems when you teach preschool, kindergarten, and even first grade, you're constantly reminding the kids of the rules. They need to be explicitly taught. This is where a lot of teachers may not have as much information or practice knowing how to do this explicit teaching for kids. Positive behavior is modeled and then taught across settings, activities, and even other staff. So we're going to go through each one. Some of these we'll go through quickly, and others I'm going to stay a little longer and give more information. So rules being concrete mean instead of having safe body, what does that mean? Safe body might mean hands to self, feet on the floor. So we want to make sure that we're giving very specific behaviors to the kids of what we want them to do. So if you're saying be kind to others or use kind words, what does that mean? What are those kind words? What do you want to hear them say? Same thing for respectful. What does respectful mean? It probably means different behaviors, a different set of behaviors on the playground than it does in the library, than it does in your class when you're having a science experiment, than it does when you're giving instruction. And so what exactly do students do to behave? What behaviors are they engaging in to show respect across settings? So it may mean listen when others are speaking. It may mean I'm keeping my hands and feet to myself. I'm only touching my things. I'm using my inside voice in the classroom, and I'm asking permission before I borrow something or touch something. Those specific behaviors can be taught. It tells kids exactly what we want them to do, and that is so helpful because I think my data is about 100% when I walk into a school and I ask a child, well, what does that mean to you? A lot of the kids are like, and that means I don't know without words. They need to have very specific rules that they can follow and behaviors that they can engage in. So the behaviors up above can be taught. Respect is that umbrella term that covers certain behaviors in certain settings in your building. Visuals help things concrete as well. So when we're looking at making something concrete, when you say be respectful, that's a pretty nebulous, abstract term, especially when you're a child. And so how can you put those specific behaviors into a visual format to really show our kids what their expectations are in different settings? You need to have 3 to 5 rules positively stated. So this would mean instead of saying no running in the hallway, you're going to say walking feet. It's going to tell kids exactly what we need them to do. I need you to walk in the hall instead of don't run in the hall. So using nice words, if you're going to use kind words, not swearing or don't swear. So there's make sure that your rules are positively stated, telling kids what you want them to do, and that you have 3 to 5. This one's important. We need to convey our rules every single day. And it doesn't matter if you're a specials teacher, it doesn't matter if you're the classroom teacher or a paraeducator, those rules need to be reviewed every single day. And sometimes many, many times per day. In the beginning of the school year, you're obviously going to teach and train and remind of those rules pretty consistently. And then as kids get more familiar with and are engaging in better behaviors, you can back off a little bit. You're going to revisit after breaks. I'm sure last week when we all came back to school, if you're like some of the staff that I coach, it was a rough week. And so we just took day 1 and I said, just take day 1 to get back into the groove with the kids. Find out what they did over their Christmas winter breaks and find out how they're feeling and how their families are, and really just start to reconnect and then revisit those rules and expectations and practice them. The next bullet point says practice, and this means physically practice. We want to physically practice with those kids the behaviors that we want them to engage in. It's really interesting because there is a middle school teacher in the Salt Lake Valley, And he had his students, all of his students in his whole middle school, practice transitioning between classrooms once a day. It wasn't an actual transition, it was a practice. And he said, we do it every single day. And at first I thought, that's kind of ridiculous. That might be too much. But as I've seen how the light bulb goes on when kids actually physically engage in the behavior that we need them to engage in, it's amazing how we can tell them what to do, or we can teach them and engage in appropriate teaching cycle, which we're going to talk about next, on how to teach those behaviors instead of just telling a student how to raise their hand or how to walk in the hallway or how to transition appropriately between classrooms or within the classroom. So practicing physically is important. And then reinforce. So when the kids are doing things that they're doing well, you want to catch them being good. And you want to put a lot of effort into making sure that they know that they're doing things the right way and that you appreciate it, and giving some of that praise. The next in the list is to be explicitly taught. We're going to go through this in depth. We're going to teach you exactly how to teach. And it's exactly the same thing when you're teaching academics. We provide instruction. We model how to do something. We practice together, or we should be practicing together. And then we give corrective or positive or both feedback. The magic happens between steps 3 and 4. Sometimes as teachers, we skip those steps. And this is where we get away from the science. If I teach a math lesson and I give instruction and I model how to do it, and then we don't practice together, there's no gradual guidance, there's no gradual release. You give a worksheet, then they turn that worksheet in, and you don't get an opportunity to provide feedback in the moment. And that's where the learning happens. So when we're teaching behavior, it's the same thing as teaching an academic lesson. We want to engage in that rehearsal where we practice together, physically practice together. And while they're practicing, you're giving positive and or corrective feedback. So the positive behavior is modeled. We're going to talk about that in future slides. And then it's taught across settings, activities, and staff. So what do the kids do? How do they behave when they're at recess on the playground and there's a playground staff out there that's not familiar with the kids? They might line up differently. They may give different prompts. Do your students know how to engage in the correct behavior across different staff members and across different ways of doing things? Do they know how to behave if there's an assembly or if there's a guest speaker coming to the classroom today? So remember to explicitly teach, revisit, repractice, reinforce, and that is a rinse, wash, rinse, and repeat. You're always revisiting, repracticing, and reinforcing. So I'm going to go into how we teach kids. This is going to talk specifically about how we teach rules and routines. These are the 4 steps that the science has laid out for us: instruction, modeling, rehearsal, and feedback. We're going to talk about instruction. You're going to describe the skill. What is the learning objective? What behavior are we teaching? It might be how to line up without touching your peers. It might be how to walk in the hall with a voice off and your hands to your sides. Whatever skill they need to learn, it needs to be explicitly taught. So this is where we start, is describing the skill. Why is a skill important? Well, when we walk in the hall, it's important for us to be quiet so that we don't disrupt classrooms that we're passing. It's important for us to keep our hands to ourselves so that we don't accidentally hurt a friend, or they might fall down if we touch them or tickle them or get in their way. So it's important just for safety. Then give a clear, concise vocal, meaning you're speaking it, and written description of the skill. So for walking in the hall, that might be a visual description of how we line up, keep our hands to our sides, have a voice off, or catch a bubble, whatever you're saying. But you really want to give them those steps. And so a written description may not be words, it may be pictures. First of all, we push our chair in. Then we line up with our hands into ourselves, or our hands clasped in front of us. So really teaching the kids every step of lining up. Then you're going to provide examples and non-examples. This should be fun. Teaching behavior is fun. And so just like in an academic lesson, you're going to do the same thing when you're teaching a behavior. You're going to teach examples. This is how we do it correctly. And this is how we do it incorrectly. And some of that can be fun and silly. And then you're going to think it through. So model how you're thinking about working through the skill. So if the teacher just says to me, I'm modeling for the kids, and the teacher says, push your chairs in and line up, I'm going to be thinking, okay, I need to push my chair in. And then what do I do? Oh yeah, I clasp my hands and I walk to the line and I'm on the yellow dot, or I'm on number 4. And so teach those kids how you're modeling for them that thought process. And a lot of our kids don't have that. Naturally, it needs to be taught to them. And so modeling how you're thinking through those behaviors and those decisions of what you do next is really important. And then provide visual supports. If it's charts or graphs or steps to implementation or a task analysis, anything the kids need to support their learning. We're going to talk about modeling next. You're going to model or show, demonstrate the new behavior. So here's where you can provide examples and non-examples, and you can model how you think through the steps. So if I'm giving an example of lining up again, I might sit in a student's chair and have maybe one of the students say it's time to line up for recess. And then I'm thinking, okay, what do I need to do? Oh, I need to push my chair in first. Oh, I have a visual poster at the front of the classroom that I can look at. What do I do after I push in my chair? Oh, I clasp my hands together and then I go line up on my number, right? And so demonstrate what that looks like for them and how you think through. If you don't know what to do next, I remember there's a poster up in the front of the room. How do I look at that and access that and use that so that I can be successful in performing the skill? Use visual supports. And I would ask, but I know this is such a short period of time, but I asked a group of educators, there was about 350 people in the room, and I asked them, how many people go to a restaurant and open the menu and look at the pictures only? And most of them raised their hand. And then I said, now I want to know how many of you have gone to a restaurant and read the description of an item, but did not order it because there was no picture. And everybody raised their hand. And I thought, a lot of people rely on visual supports and they help us to know what that behavior looks like or what we need to do next. So regardless of if your children are regular ed or special ed, whether they are younger or older, those pictures really do add to their ability to engage in the behavior. And then as you're teaching and modeling that, you can ask, what do I do next? What should I do next? If you've created a visual, that will prompt those kids to look up at the visual and learn how to use that to know what comes next. So you're gradually turning it over to them learning. The next step is rehearsal, and rehearsal is practice. It's role play. And this is where you get up and you have the kids do this together. I'm not saying if you have a classroom full of 30 kids that we're all going to line up together at the same time. I think you need to be intentional of how you're going to teach this and how you're going to implement this. But we have taught kids from lining up to getting a super fun drink to taking a break in the classroom. And we've gone through and rehearsed it via role play, just depending on the age of your kids and the ability of your students. How you're going to do that might look different, but you are going to physically get up and practice. While they're practicing, you're going to provide a lot of support. You're going to prompt, you're going to redirect, you're going to say, good job. Oh, you forgot to push your chair in. Let's go back and start over again. You want them to learn how to engage in the correct behavior with as many prompts and supports as needed, and then you'll fade back on those. So you might do that step 20 times. You may do it twice. You may not have to do it at all. If you have a classroom that's lining up appropriately, then you don't need to go back and do this for every single rule. If the kids have learned it, then you've taught it. You don't need to go back and do this. Scaffold their independence. So as they are physically going through those steps, you gradually provide less prompting, less corrective feedback, and you provide more praise because they're doing things correctly. Plan to spend time in this area and don't skimp on this, because if you remember, this step and the next step, the rehearsal and the feedback steps, are where the learning happens. And so don't go through this quickly. If the kids haven't learned it, we haven't taught it yet. And it's really interesting that when I'm working with teachers and we think that the child has learned something or knows how to do something, the child might be able to tell me the steps, but the child, when we ask them to perform the skill or when it's time to line up, they don't engage in the correct behaviors. That means they haven't learned it, right? And so that's a good indication to us that we need to go back and really teach it, not just tell it, because telling is not teaching. Last step is feedback. Feedback is where you're giving corrective feedback. So you're giving reminders and prompts. Oh, remember to clasp your hands. Remember to line up on your number. Let's try that again. And giving them as many pre-corrections as possible so that they engage in as close to the correct behavior as possible. And then praise them for doing well. And then, like I said earlier, this is a rinse and repeat. It's not a one and done. This is where the magic happens, is between the rehearsal or the role play and the feedback part. So then once they've learned how to do things, then you might role play different scenarios, right? How do you line up when you're on the playground? How does that look different than you're lining up when you're in the library? How might that look different in the classroom, depending on where we're going? So really teach the kids that there are differences in those things. A lot of our kids don't generalize. They don't know that, hey, when the playground duty lines us up, it might look different than it is in the classroom. And so what happens is, because it looks different, they transfer that behavior back to the classroom lining up, and that might not be appropriate. So teach them that there are different settings, there are different staff, there are different situations where lining up might look different. And then just remember that rehearsal and feedback is where the learning happens. Making sure that we generalize this across settings. How does other staff support this newly learned skill? What visual supports or vocal prompts are necessary to help your kids be successful if they're not in class with you, but they're with another class, another staff in a different class? Making sure that you're collaborating and helping that staff member give the correct amount of support to the kids so they can be successful. Younger kids need more and more practice. They just do. They need more reminders, but you want to get away from the vocal reminding or the nagging, the vocal prompts, and you want to get into where they can do it on their own. And that's where that physical practice is important. You may practice certain things many times every day for the first few weeks. After that, if you're still giving a lot of vocal prompts, then you probably need to go back and reteach. Use things that they can remember. Use visuals, songs, chants, some of those like acronyms. We had an acronym in a school that I taught in that was snow for the recess when there was snow outside. And so the S was like, I don't even remember, but it was, you don't throw the snow, you don't kick the snow, things like that. So it was, those acronyms were pertaining to recess, and we reminded the kids, they all said the recess rules before we went out to recess, and it was really effective. And then as the kids become more independent and they're doing those behaviors on their own, you're going to provide less cues and reminders. Granted, you probably will have a few kids that still need more support. Then what can you do to support them so that you're not vocally cueing them all the time? Can they have a little chart that's their own, that's on their desk? Can you use visuals that you point to rather than vocally prompting them over and over again every day? Because then our kids become prompt dependent and they do less and need more prompting. So we want to get them as independent as possible. So here's an example of how we would do going back to school routine. So a student enters the classroom and this visual might be up on the board. Kids that need more support, I might print this off and laminate it and give them a dry erase marker, and they can check off that square on the right side when they've completed the task. So we're going to give very good instruction. I'm going to teach kids that this is important when we come to school, that we have all of these things done because it keeps us safe. We don't have coats on the floor. It lets me see your homework because you've turned it in. Giving examples of what that might look like and examples of what it doesn't look like. When you model, when I taught this to a group of third grade students recently, I went outside the classroom And I squatted down like I was short, and I came in and pretended I was a student. I had my coat, I had my backpack, I had my homework. And so I came in and I immediately went to the right where I hung up my coat. Then it fell on the floor. Can I leave my coat on the floor? No, why not? It's not safe, right? And the kids know that. So how do I hang up my coat so that it stays on the hook? Well, some coats have a little tag in the back that you can open up and slide it over the hook. We need to teach those things. That's how kids learn. When we teach them and we spend time there, we have far fewer coats on the floor. So I'm going to model hanging up the coat, taking my homework out of the backpack, turning it in the bin that's right next to the coat rack, then hanging up my backpack with the coat, then going over to get the lunch, do the lunch count. It might be I take my popsicle stick, I put it in a bin for home lunch or a bin for school lunch. It might be I check it. It might be I tell the teacher or I give the teacher my lunch box so that they know what type of lunch I need that day. And then how to get the bell ringer off the table and then go sit down. So as you teach these routines and these rules, you're showing and modeling for the kids how to do that. Then after you've modeled for them and you've talked through, oh no, I forgot to hang up my coat. I still have it on and I'm sitting down. Darn it, I forgot. Where can I look so that I can remember next time? Well, I have this visual up on a PowerPoint on the whiteboard every morning when the kids come in. They know that they can refer to that. Some kids need more support. What kind of support do they need? And how can we help them? Because we do have kids that will need different levels of support. So like I said, you might have this printed off and laminated so a student can check it off. You may have somebody to physically help that student. It might be a paraeducator or a peer if the student needs some help that way. So there's lots of things that we can do to help the kids be successful. And so just looking to see who needs extra help and what do they need. Then the rehearsal part is where we physically get up and we practice. I would have all the kids line up out in the hallway with their coat, their backpack, and their homework, and we're going to seriously practice this. So the kids come in one at a time. They wait in line. They don't cut in line. Somebody might take a longer time. That's okay. And so teaching them how they do that in the routine with other kids. And while they're doing that, you're going to give feedback. Oh, Christine, wait a minute. Katie's in front of you. Don't pass her up because you need to hang up your coat. Great job, Christine. Thank you for waiting. Right? Really giving specific, explicit correction and praise in the moment so that the kids know what they're doing well and they know what they need to correct. So sometimes you can have cues. I gave a cue signal for the snow that we had when I taught school in, I was a third grade teacher for a while. So here's some recess rules. I would have these on over the door or next to the door, somewhere where you guys are reviewing the rules for recess every time you go outside. Why? Because it's best practice. Our kids forget. Our kids have other things on their mind. It's also a good time for us to incorporate maybe some pre-teaching. You know, it snowed outside, so maybe when we get to number 4, I'm going to say, obey the playground rules. Guys, what do we do when there's snow? Do we kick the snow? No, why not? Because it might hurt somebody. Do we throw the snow? No, why not? Right? And so it really gives us a chance to incorporate some things that may be happening at recess that you want to get in front of, or remind them of specific things under the rules. So they might say, so the class lines up, we're ready to go outside, and we will say, I will have a safe hands and body. I will use kind words. I will include friends. So we've taught these explicit behaviors. They know what these things mean, and we remind them every day before they go out. So that's an example of how to cue kids before they go to recess so that they engage in the appropriate behaviors. You can do a song. I made this one up. I make up so many songs to Jingle Bells because kids know Jingle Bells. So this I just made up for a preschool class when I was on site, and the teacher said, we need some help. And so what are the problems? Well, they forget to push in their chair. They don't get their coat. They're not sure where to line up. So here we go. When I'm called to line up, I push in my chair. I walk to get my coat and then I line up over there. Okay, that is simple, but the kids sing it over and over and over again. They're happy. It's a great tune because it's Jingle Bells. And for some reason, no one knows that it's Jingle Bells, but we've made up a song that gives them the instructions, and then they go home and they sing it all night, and their parents text me and they say, I'm going crazy because they won't stop singing this song. But do they know the rules to lining up? Yes, because we put it to music. You don't have to write it yourself. I go online and there are a plethora of great resources that are free to teachers that have all kinds of videos and musical chants and songs and things like that that you can download for free, or you can call me and I'll help you. And everybody knows the cleanup song, right? Clean up, everybody, everywhere. Oh, that means everybody, right? And I'm not going to go on to sing the rest of that song, but there are a lot of songs that will help our kids remember what they need to do and what behaviors they need to engage in. All right, I'm going to spend a minute here. We need to make sure that we have consequences. A consequence happens after the behavior. A consequence doesn't mean something bad, although as human beings, we tend to say that it is something bad. But a consequence just means something that follows a behavior. So consequences can increase behavior, they can decrease behavior, or they maintain behavior. Whatever happens after the behavior happens is what makes that behavior stop or keep going. And so when we're looking at behavior, and we're going to talk a lot more about this in weeks 3 and 4, when we're looking at student behavior and it's continuing, whether it's a bad behavior or good behavior, it's because it's being reinforced, probably inadvertently. So we need to have consequences for 2 things. The kids that follow the rules, they get good stuff. The kids that don't follow the rules don't get the good stuff, or they get a portion of the good stuff. They get less of the good stuff. You're going to have to think about what's appropriate in your room. When I was a teacher, I certainly had consequences. They were like, if you don't do this, you don't get this. And that's only half of it, right? The science supports having consequences for the students who engage in the correct behavior and for students who don't engage in the correct behavior. So we're going to talk a little bit about what this will be. The consequences should be logical and natural. They need to be consistent and no surprises. The kids need to know what those consequences are. If you finish your independent work with whatever supports are necessary, maybe you have a reduced number of questions, whatever support's necessary, if you complete your work, you get to go to recess on time. That's a consequence for engaging in the appropriate behavior, which was work completion. If you do not work on your paper with as many supports and accommodations as appropriate and necessary, then you miss 2 minutes of recess. If the kids already know that, you're not doling out consequences all day long. The kids know, if I do this, I get this. If I don't do this, I don't get this. I need to stay in for 2 minutes of recess. So do you have them come in and put their head down? No. What would that do? That's not logical or natural. You're going to have them finish as much of their worksheet in 2 minutes as they can, and you're going to sit with them and help them. Okay, so it's making sure that they're doing what they need to be doing so that they can access the good consequences. So consequences should be logical and natural. If a kid hits another kid when they're lining up, the last thing you're going to have them do is take a Clorox wipe and walk around the school and wipe down all the doorknobs. For one thing, they'll probably get a lot of attention and praise from teachers and people walking around. Thank you for washing the doorknob. No, I just hit somebody. That's not logical or natural, right? A consequence needs to be provided right after the behavior. If you tell a 3-year-old that they're going to miss recess in an hour, then when they miss recess, they're not going to match that consequence to this behavior. It needs to have something that happens right now. It shouldn't be devastating. It should never be all or nothing, because when we take everything away from a kid, then what do they have to work for or look forward to? It should be little. It should be little stuff, but stuff that's important, that it stings just a little bit, that they miss it, because you want them to engage in the right behavior next time. And the most important thing is students need to know beforehand. I would take every single classroom rule and every behavior under that rule, and I would put a consequence next to it that is visual in your classroom. Does that take up room? Yes. Is it pretty? Probably not. The consequence for being kind, here's the behaviors under being kind. The consequences for being kind, having hands to yourself, is you get to go to recess the whole time and you get to do anything you want. The consequence for not keeping your hands to yourself, you may need to stay in for a couple of minutes so that we can talk about the rule of keeping hands to self and what I can do to help you when you go outside, right? And so the kids know, and when the kids know the consequence, it cuts your work in about a fifth. And we implement consequences to teach, not punish. If I say one thing 10 times in this presentation, it would be that. Consequences are meant to teach, not punish. There are good consequences that people doing the right thing get, and there are consequences that kids that don't engage in the right behavior also get. Be the hero, not the villain. And I'll give you a quick example of this. If the kids know what the consequences are, then you can help them instead of be the punisher or the villain, right? So if the kids know that, hey, I didn't finish this 5-question worksheet and I've been, off task or daydreaming, and the teachers come around and help me stay on task and help me get started on number 1. So you've done your due diligence as a teacher to make sure that you're giving the amount of support that every student needs, which I know is hard and you're exhausted and tired. I know, and I appreciate that you guys do all of the great things that you do. The kids know. So then you say, okay, everybody that has completed their 5 questions on their worksheet can put them in the bin and line up for recess. Kids that have not, you can stay in. I'm going to get the kids out to recess, and then I'm going to come back and help you. Right? So that makes you the hero instead of the villain. You're not reminding them of what they didn't do. You're not saying, well, you can't go to recess then. You're not throwing out some consequence that is unknown and random, and it might even not be appropriate depending on your mood and if you slept well and ate breakfast, right? It's all planned out beforehand. The kids know, you can come in and help instead of be the villain. So what happens if a student breaks the rule of hands to self? Preschool student hits another student 3 times while lining up. What's the consequence for following the rule of hands to self? You get to go to recess with your friends and have a great time. Super fun. Consequence of not following. It would depend on your classroom. It would depend on the ability of your student. What do they need? What consequence do you need to give so that they are going to be learning the correct behavior? Not going outside to recess is the option. If the kid's hitting people and they get to go out to recess and play like all of the other kids, then you've just taught that student that they can hit and not follow the rules and get everything that all the kids that are following the rules get. Different set of consequences for that kid. So maybe that student stays back and talks to the teacher for 3 minutes out of recess, and the teacher can help remind the student and figure out what that student needs. Maybe it's pre-teaching, maybe it's lining up, holding the teacher's hand so that they can't hit. Maybe it's holding something or holding the door. What extra supports can we do, not to punish the student, but to make that student be successful? I'm going to give you a teacher checklist for rules and expectations, and also a teacher checklist for procedures and routines. So you'll have both of those. Promote independence. Make your job easier. Teach the kids how to sharpen their own pencil. I don't care if they're in kindergarten. They can be taught how to do these things, how to access their materials, how to take a break in the classroom, how to transition. Make sure that you've taught all of these things using the teaching protocol that I taught in this PowerPoint, and make sure that they know how to do these things, because all of this stuff, if you can free up all of the time you spend correcting behavior, getting the art supplies down, sharpening pencils, tying shoes, I mean, oh my goodness, you would have like probably 5 more hours a day to teach, right? Teach these things. Have a transition plan. What do those kids do? How do they transition? Practice it physically. Provide feedback. What are you going to do for the kids who need more support? Maybe they have a different structure to their transition. What do they need so that they can be successful? Now I'm going to teach you guys how to implement a group contingency plan. This is for younger kids, pretty simple, straightforward, and so effective. So a group contingency is where there are predetermined criteria for a consequence or reinforcement for everyone in the classroom. So there's 3 types. We're going to do the interdependent type because I feel like it's the smartest one to do. And there are several different types of interdependent group contingencies. We will go over a different kind on Thursday with the older group, but even that is something you can apply to your littles. So an interdependent group contingency is everybody does the behavior and everybody gets the consequence. Everybody gets the reinforcement. Everybody does it, everybody gets it. Okay. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, well, Roger never does this. Well, have you taught the kids all how to do that? Have you given Roger the extra support that he needs to be successful? So let me give you an example. If everyone keeps their hands and feet to themselves at recess, we will stay out 120 seconds longer. Oh my gosh, that is a long time when you're a kid, right? That's everybody has safe hands, keeps hands and feet to themselves. We're going to stay out longer. You're telling them because you did this, you're going to get this now. And it's super awesome and super fun. You reinforce the whole class, and it can address multiple behaviors or multiple students with behaviors at the same time. Group contingencies are so effective and so efficient. They're super easy. They take little time, little planning, but avoid singling out that one kid, right? I'm going to teach you how to do that. We can use group contingencies when there's a new skill we're learning, when maybe the instruction we have planned is maybe a little bit boring. It can increase participation, help learn classroom rules and routines, support being on task, completion of independent work. Here's the steps. We're going to go through these quickly, and then I'm going to give some examples and spend more time there. Determine what behavior you want. What is it that you want the kids to do? Choose the reward. Something that's reinforcing to the kids. That means it has to be something they will work for, something they want, something they desire. Plan what token you're going to use. Are you going to use a giant pom-pom? Are you going to use a marble? Are you going to use a bear? Are you going to use a poker chip? Whatever token, are you going to use a tally on the board, on the whiteboard? Can be super easy. Teach the kids the expected behavior. Instruction, model, rehearsal, feedback. Very explicitly teach the kids. What cues and reminders and visual supports do you need? And then provide reinforcement and praise after the correct behavior. So Johnny, I love the way you pushed your chair in when you went to line up. Thank you, great job. That's what you want to catch them doing, is engaging in the correct behavior and catch them being good. Praise them while providing the token. I'm giving everybody in the class a tally right now because everybody was in their seat ready to learn after I got counted down from 10. Great job, you guys. And then provide the reinforcement when they've earned it. When we have little kids, we need to provide reinforcement a lot. You can't have a kid. I worked with a kindergarten teacher this morning, and she said, I'm giving my kids a party at the end of the month for engaging in all these good behaviors. They're 5. They can't. and they will never equate the party that happens in January 30th or whatever to all these behaviors that they've done all month. And they don't have the actual brain capability to understand that what I do all day, every day goes towards some nebulous party. What does that even mean at the end of the month? They need more frequent reinforcement. That can be really simple and really easy. Make sure the reward is worth it. Do things that they want. I took a group of kids that were in preschool to get a super fun drink of water. We had so much fun. They were reinforced by going and getting a drink of water. We got back to the classroom and they were like, teacher, guess what we did? Miss Manning took us to get a super fun drink of water. And the teacher was like, what just happened here? We had a super fun time, right? You can teach things to be reinforcing and fun. And then make students successful. So I'm going to give you an example. Teacher I was working with a student who had a behavior plan that I wrote, 4th or 5th grade. She had tables. He was on the yellow table. I was in there doing an observation. She gave a direction. When I call your table, I want you to put your assessment on my desk, sanitize your hands, and then go to the cart and grab your vegetable packet and then sit at your seat. That was what she gave the directions for. So she called the different tables and then they would go do those things and she would count down from 10. They were supposed to be back in their desks. Any of you guys do that? It's awesome. So she calls the yellow table. My student gets up, he's slower, he gets a little distracted everywhere. And she's counting down and she recognizes that he's not going to make it back to his table. So instead of going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Eric, you didn't make it. Your team can't earn a point. Too bad, so sad. She could have done that. And I've actually seen teachers do that. And so you guys that are like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. I see it. Even when the teachers know I'm in there observing, I see it. So she started slowing down when she got to 5 because she was watching him. And she said 5, 4, 3. If Eric wasn't moving any faster, she could have said, hurry, Eric, grab your vegetables and sit down. I'm on 2, right? 1, as he's sitting down. She made him successful. Give the students the help they need, the support they need so that they can earn. Don't say, well, the yellow table didn't get their point because Eric was too slow. Eric got distracted again. Nope, we are calling out good stuff. We're calling out good behaviors and we're doing what we need to do to make those kids successful. Preschool students are struggling to keep their hands to themselves. You're going to look at what behavior you want. What reward are they earning? They love to use the gel markers at the end of the day. Awesome. We're going to let them use the gel markers. They're so cool. And they have sparkles in them. That's even better. What am I going to use as counters? I'm going to fill a little tiny cup with pom-poms. When we get all those pom-poms in the cup, they earn the party. It will be earned at the end of the day because they're earning gel markers today. They will understand that today. How are we going to teach those behaviors? Instruction, modeling, rehearsal, and feedback from beginning. What reminders and visuals do you need? Praise, reinforce. Great, you guys, I'm going to take the pom-pom with us. If we can line up, keeping our hands to ourselves in the hallway, when we get to the library, I'm going to put this pom-pom in the cup. And when this cup is full, meaning I have these giant pom-poms, I need 5 of them, and we're going to line up 5 times today. We're going to have a party at the end of the day and use super fun glitter gel pens. It's amazing. They'll do it. Small group of 3rd grade students talking out, same process. What do you need them to do? How are you going to teach it, count it, reward it? Even though they're in 3rd grade, they're not going to wait a month for a party. You can have it on Friday and give little things intermittently while they're waiting for Friday. You can't just not do anything and then on Friday have a pizza party. It doesn't work. They need little things throughout the day. So I gave you some reinforcer ideas and I've got pages of ideas that you can use that are free or cheap or take a minute to do. A dance party can literally take 1 minute. It can be a Go Noodle video. It can literally take a minute, but it's a party because everybody did what we needed them to do and they are so awesome. We're going to take bubbles to recess. That's not taking any time out of your regular day. We're going to see if the bubbles freeze because it's 16 degrees outside and the wind is blowing. Let's do a science experiment while we're out there, right? So it can be things that are tied in and woven into your content during the day. Group contingencies help kids help each other. You need to teach it, but that's what we want them to do, is learn how to help each other. And then make sure that you are calling out the good kids' behavior, not calling out the kids who are not engaging that behavior. Give them support and reminders and help so that they can be successful and reduce that tendency to call out, well, Johnny didn't get in his seat when I counted to 5, so you guys don't get your tally. Focus on helping Johnny get to a seat in time, even if you have to go help him. How to increase effectiveness? Group kids in tables that can help each other out. Don't have all of the high-performing kids at one table. Have them interspersed so that they can help one another. Give behavior-specific praise. I love the way you lined up appropriately, keeping your hands to yourself. Thank you. You guys are amazing. Goes a long way. Catch them being good. Allow teams to select their group names. Ensure the rewards are desired, meaning the kids want them and they're going to really try to have good behavior to earn whatever that is. And then you change them up frequently. If you have gel pens, glittery gel pens at the end of every day when they fill up that little cup with the 5 pom-poms, that might last for a few days, and they're going to need to change it up. They're going to need something else. So it's good if you can keep on top of those rewards or those reinforcers to keep the kids fresh. You can do a mystery motivator. You can let them tell you what they want to earn. Really effective things to do. So the objectives, we covered the science of classroom management with strong evidence, covered how to improve the learning environment, to decrease problem behaviors by teaching the rules and routines. And then we hopefully learned how to successfully implement a simple group contingency plan. So what I want you guys to do is two things. One is complete the checklist that you get sent. That will really let you know exactly where your strengths and weaknesses are and allow you to choose a couple of small goals to enhance your practice, right? If you have 10 things that are in the red and 5 things that are in the yellow, that's okay. We're all learning. We all learn at our own pace, and we can't do everything perfectly right away. So don't let that be daunting. Hide it or shred it, but know what skills you are going to work on and create little goals and make little steps at a time. Don't say, I'm going to teach all the classroom rules over again and start and do all of the implementation of the teaching strategy. That will kill you. You don't want to do that. Make little improvements over time so that it's not too stressful for you, but make some of those changes. Decide how to implement the things you're going to change and then plan. And I know that's the hardest part, and that's the time, like, we don't have time for that, but that is really important, that you spend time to think, how am I going to implement this and what does this mean? And talk to your other teachers. Talk to your seasoned teachers that have good classroom management skills and let them help you get some ideas or ways to tweak some of the things that we talked about today. I really want your feedback. I want to know what you implement. I want to know what's working or not working. We're going to be together for 5 weeks over every other week, but I really want your feedback on what things you set goals for and how it's working for you, because that's the whole idea of doing this this 5-week cooperative learning, is that you guys will change your behavior to have better classroom management skills and the other things that we talk about. So thank you. Thank you for being here after school. Thank you for teaching school. Thank you for loving kids and all you do. I have 6 kids of my own, and I've taught kids, and I know how hard the job is and sometimes how thankless it is. You get a bottle of lotion at the winter break, and that's super awesome. And then you have lotion for the rest of your life. But I do appreciate what you do, and I know how hard you work. And the fact that you're signing up for these sessions goes to show that you do want to enhance your practice and you do care about being a better teacher for these kids. So thank you. You will get these. These are the sources that I used. And then I did add 3 articles on praise. I think Deana sent them out to you as well. Praise is such a huge, highly effective intervention that changes behavior literally like this in your classroom. There's 3 articles here. I love praise. I just don't have time to put it in. So if you want a little bit extra boost, here are a few articles that you can look at on your own time and really think about the words you're saying in your classrooms and how to give positive praise and keep that positive classroom environment. So thank you for being here. I know that we are going to stop the recording and then we can take a few questions if you guys want to